You hear a lot today about the inequality of wealth distribution, but is it wrong to be wealthy?
You are listening to Wealth Talks. Wealth redistribution. You hear that buzzword all the time. Politicians are talking about it. Social elites are talking about it. They want to reform society and make wealth equal by redistribution so everybody can enjoy it equally and, quote, fairly.
And ironically, multi-million-dollar ball players, both male and female, across all sports, are talking about the inequality of income.
And you know, that's really ironic because America is talking about all these socialist ideas now, but America did not start out as a socialist country. In fact, America has been a prime opponent of socialism for many years.
Well, the whole idea behind socialism is that there are just so many resources in the world, and there's a scarcity of wealth. And so there's got to be some oversight over who gets it and how much they get, because if you get more than I do, then you might be more prosperous than I am. And so there's this idea that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels laid out years ago that the government should be the one who decides how much your services, your productivity is worth, and to take from those who can produce more and give to those who can't or won't produce, so that everyone can enjoy the limited amount of resources that this world has to offer us.
Yeah, it is a scarcity mindset, no question about it. But it has a strange twist because Marx and Engels, they believed that humans were becoming so productive with the Industrial Revolution that all that remained was not more productivity, but just a redistribution of the productivity that had already been obtained. And that's the same type of thinking that goes on today. Yes, people think that technology may advance to some degree, but it's a limited mindset. It's a scarcity mindset with this funny twist to it that somehow then you have to manage all of those resources. And the fact is that nobody can manage the resources, or no one entity, whether it's government or a person, can manage those resources like the people that God entrusted them to.
And here's a problem that, you know, the other side of the story is that you are free, that you are created in the image of God, that you have the ability to make something out of nothing and create an abundance out of scarcity. But what happens when government steps in and regulates your production, taxes your production, and limits your free distribution of what you produce or what you can provide in service, then you spend more of your time trying to finagle more out of the government than in spending time actually producing abundance out of scarcity. And now we have a place where the little g, as Mr. Nash always used to say, replaces the big G. Government replaces God. And now we've got neo-capitalism, where capitalists, producers, entrepreneurs are seeking reimbursement from government. They become a bigger welfare state than those who really are in poverty. And now we've got this really unusual type of war going on between what Marx and Engels called socialism and what neo-capitalists call capitalism.
Yeah, it's really a war against prosperity.
It is,
and you know this goes back. It's not a new thing because it goes way back to Genesis and the story of the Tower of Babel, where they were making bricks. Rabbi Lapin, our friend, does a great job of breaking this down in his audio recording called Tower of Power. You can get it on his website, RabbiDanielLapin.com. We'll make sure that link gets in the resources for you.
And just to give you a heads up, the idea that they were building uniform bricks, every brick was the same as they made this tower, and they were reaching to extreme heights, and God came in, of course, and destroyed their ability to communicate with each other, because all of the things that God built were with unhewn stones that were naturally occurring because he wanted us to use the creativeness there, not make everybody the same. And I can't help but think of the song that the Who sang years ago, and that is, "You're just another brick in the wall." And that's what socialism and neo-capitalism produce. They don't produce prosperity and abundance for everybody. They just reduce us all down to the same limited scarcity. And so all great advances in society have come because of charity, of generosity. And generosity and charity means that I'm willing to produce more than what I need for myself because I know that if I do that, I can help you. And you are more interested in producing more of what you can produce or provide more service in what you can do better because you know it can help other people. And then that gives us an excess on both sides to exchange those goods and service and create a better life for everybody.
Okay. So we have the story of the Tower of Babel years ago as an example of the war on prosperity, making everybody bricks. We have a more modern example of Marx and Engels with their philosophy here. Somewhere in between, how did this idea develop? Where did it come from? I mean, does it appear in any other major world cultures?
Well, I think it does, is when we look at any selfish society or people that want to have a life of ease or luxury without having to work for it are always going to be looking at some way to graft that off somebody else. Government just becomes a useful tool for people who know how to manipulate it, and all we have to look at is a lot of our Congress people and how they go into Congress barely making $100,000 or $150,000, $200,000 a year, and 3 or 4 years later they come out multimillionaires.
Yeah.
They know how to make the system work.
So the Greeks, for instance, they were they were really into their intelligence. They honored intelligence and
bronze.
And bronze, the physical aspects of life. They honored those aspects very highly. They thought wealth was a bad thing too, right?
They did. Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, all of those. In fact, Marx and Engels relied heavily on Plato and Socrates to write their Marxist thesis because they thought it was very unhealthy to even touch money. There are some saints in the Roman Catholic Church, for instance, that said they would rather pick up a piece of manure than to touch a piece of money. But they didn't realize that the people that fed them had to barter with money to make it possible for them to eat. So we can, it's this idea that we're too good for producing. I'm reminded of what Benjamin Franklin said to the Europeans when they said they wanted to come to America. He said, in America, everybody works. There wasn't an elite class that lived off the production of the masses. And until people learned how to get the government to subsidize them instead of producing, that's the way America grew. That's how it became such a great nation. And some of those residual elements are still there for us to exercise. And that's what we encourage you to do. Instead of looking for government for a handout in your business or in your personal life, go out and produce it. The freedom still exists for us to do that. Yeah, there's some regulations that have been put in place that make it a little bit higher. Taxes make it a little bit more difficult. But we're still the freest nation in the world to pursue our liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay, yeah. So that we see all these different cultures in the world going towards wealth redistribution and whatnot, which brings up the question that's really at the crux of all this is it wrong to be wealthy, right?
Well, what is wealth? Wealth simply means to have a well-being, to be healthy, and to be prosperous. And if I compare your wealth against my wealth, there's going to be a discrepancy. If I compare my wealth against Bill Gates' wealth or Jeff Bezos' wealth, there's going to be a disparity there.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not to say that Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos haven't made the entire world a better place to live and have more abundance.
Absolutely. What wealth have they brought to the world?
Yeah, there's like 500 million cell phones in the world today. There's just a few percent of the population that doesn't own one. That means their life is better. There are millions of people that are selling on Amazon.com that wouldn't be able to exchange their goods and services for anything else, which makes the whole world's economy better. And so when government steps in and says, oh, Jeff Bezos, you can only produce so much, you can only have so many sellers on your site, or you've got to give back X amount of money, that limits Jeff Bezos from creating something else that's going to create more abundance.
Sure. So what about monopolies, though? Because monopolies can restrict.
Monopolies are a form of government.
Okay.
Where they get so big, and we're looking at that with some companies like Google and Facebook and things like this, where they're regulating other people's freedoms. They're censoring, they're producing algorithms that limit people's freedom of speech, freedom of trade, freedom of expression. Now that's where real government was authorized by God to regulate those and to shut those types of monopolies down because they compete with good government.
Okay. So we have to draw the distinction between government and monopolies and businesses.
That's correct. Yes.
So that we can preserve everyone's individual freedom. So as we look at this here, a lot of people do fall into the error, though, as they're trying to build wealth, that they're seeking riches rather than wealth. And, it's not a bad thing to want to make money as you're serving people, but what about the people that are just after the riches?
Well,
and
first
what's the
of
difference?
all, poverty or riches don't define who a person is.
Okay.
Any more than someone's intelligence or brawn. A person that's alive, born, conceived, has value. So much value because it was created. It was created by God, that individual. And the same with our own creations. They have a value. We're not creating life, but we're creating abundance out of nothing many times simply because of our creative nature. So we have to be careful about defining who somebody is by how much money they have or how many material possessions they have. At the same time, seeking riches can be very deceptive because just seeking money or material possessions lets us overlook the fact that we should be charitable and generous. And those are the seeds of true capitalism rather than neo-capitalism. And so if we're just seeking to heap upon ourselves the riches that we can get by taking advantage of someone else or charging more for the services and produce that we produce than are really necessary, then we're going to be deceived. And we're told over and over again that those who love money will never be satisfied with money. So we're going to miss out on the fulfillment and the joy and the feeling of well-being that wealth is all about. So we're never going to really be wealthy, even though we might have lots of money and material possessions.
So in other words, we have to be balanced about it and be making sure that we're getting the value out of our service and not just the monetary value from it. Is that what you're saying?
We're supposed to be focused on the charity and the generosity that because we're capable of producing, 10 widgets when we only need 3, we're helping other people with those 7 extra widgets. And what are we doing in that? That's where the fulfillment and the wealth really come from, and the fact that because we're capable of doing that, we can exchange that with somebody else and make their life better. And at the same time, that other person most likely can make our life more balanced and abundant because they're willing to exchange something they've been able to produce more of or provide more service in.
Well, this reminds me of what the Apostle John said. He said, "May you prosper as your soul prospers." And with it, as people are thinking about these ideas and putting them into practice in their life, what's the difference between someone that goes for like a prosperity doctrine type situation where they say, well, hey, because you believe the way you do and just go out and serve and you're going to be prosperous, you're going to have every type of wealth roll into you, versus the people that realize that wealth, just because you serve doesn't mean that the wealth comes pouring in doors. What's the difference between that mindset?
Well, the biggest difference is that where is your heart? Is your heart on the fact that if I go out and I serve all these people, I'm going to get richer than all of them? And I'm going to be able to live in a better house than all of them? Am I going to drive faster cars, fancier cars? Is my wife going to be more beautiful, or are my kids going to go to elite schools and theirs aren't? Is that my focus? Is that my purpose? Is my purpose am I serving other people and making their lives better? Because if I'm not serving other people and making their lives better than what I'm doing, I'm not wealthy, I'm just rich. Mm-hmm. And there's no place in God's world that says that just because we serve and love Him that we're going to be wealthy.
No.
In riches,
True.
in material riches. In fact, as He says, that we're going to be persecuted, we're going to be insulted, we're going to lose possessions, we're going to lose loved ones, we could even lose money and even our life by choosing to serve Him. And we better be able to have something worth dying for like that, or nothing in what we do in life is worth attaining.
If you don't have something worth dying for, there's nothing worth living for. I can't remember who said that, but that's what comes to mind.
So, to boil it all down, this world is not a zero-sum game. Mm-hmm. And that's because we've been made in the image of God, and that we shouldn't just be conformed to be like everybody else. Our unique differences are what can make this world a better place for everybody if we'll exercise those and be able to produce and serve other people in an extraordinary way. Mm-hmm. And vice versa, other people's uniqueness will do the same thing. And no two people, as we know, are alike. So if we really focus on that instead of trying how to get something out of somebody else for nothing, or get something from the government that's taken it from somebody else, the world will continue to grow and prosper and become more abundant for everybody. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be equal, because even under socialism and Marxist theology or the Greek theology or the Roman theology, no one was equal.
No, even if when they idolize the equality or the philosophical, the value of equally redistributing wealth in any of the forms that has appeared in history, none of those societies have ever attained equality.
We're each given according to our ability, and if we exercise that gift according to our ability, we can double it. Mm-hmm. Very easy. But if we don't live up to our abilities, then we're promised even what we do have will be taken away from us. Mm-hmm. And of course, Jesus said that we will always have the poor with us, so there will always be opportunity for us to exercise charity, love, and compassion on people that have less than you have. But if you try to equalize by some external force of coming and saying, okay, let's give each people $3 today, in just a few years or less, there's going to be someone that has more money than the rest of them, because that's the way humans are. Yeah. And that's the way the world works.
Mm-hmm. So you've been hearing about some philosophical ideas today, some historical ideas, and the applications of those ideas in your life. To bring it down a little bit more to a practical level for what you can go take away from this podcast, put into action today. If you are listening to this podcast as an individual or you have a family, download the 10-20-70 worksheets that are attached, fill those out, and see how you're managing your finances right now. Because it all starts with what you have right now. Are you managing what you have right now well?
It is. It's all about what you have right now and what you're keeping of what you're making.
Yeah. So the 10-20-70 worksheet will help you do that evaluation. There's a video on the page that will walk you through how to do that. And for businesses, it's a little bit different. It kind of follows the same guidelines. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, a lot of people say that when you go into business, you just need to go into debt and always try to get more and more sales, more and more, produce more so you can sell more, produce
Sure.
more so you can, and so you're pouring all your profits back into the business so that you can get it to take off, and someday you're going to make the huge sale that's going to let you kick up your heels and relax and retire forever. And yet that's so contrary to what Jesus said about the farmer who said, hey man, I've got it made. I'm going to build these huge barns. I'm going to stuff them full with all of what I've made. I'm going to kick back and I'm going to relax. And he said, hey, guess what? You fool, tonight you die.
Yeah.
And then what? Who's going to get all your possessions? So the truth of the matter is we should be taking our profits first, because if we don't keep the first fruits, Paul told people that his son Timothy that the farmer should be the first person to share in the crops, not the second, not the last, not the third, but the very first.
Yes.
In the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy, it says, don't muzzle the ox that treads the grain. The people that are doing the work need to be fed. They need to have those profits first, because of their ingenuity and their entrepreneurship, they will be able to create more that will make the whole world better than if we take those profits away from them and give them to someone who hasn't produced. And that's the whole crux of capitalism, is that he who produces should be the first one to be rewarded, because they've managed what's been given them well. They were given to according to what they were able to do, and they were good at it. So they should be rewarded so they can do it again and again and again. And when they do it over and over and over again, the whole world reaps the abundance of what they've been able to do.
Yeah, that is key. So that profits first concept that you talked about, that could apply personally with the 10-20-70. You take your 10% savings, take that first. It applies in your business as well. If you need help applying it in your business, give us a call at 702-660-7000, and we'll talk about what that looks like for you.
And of course, we usually talk about participating in whole life insurance on this podcast, because participating in whole life insurance allows you to keep your profits in a place that continue to grow, while you can leverage other people's money and help them create more value for the rest of the world as well. That's the whole idea behind the mutual policies, is that a group of people come together of like mind and join their resources together to accomplish something that individually they couldn't accomplish alone.
You have something to chew on for the week. You are listening to Wealth Talks, where we talk about solutions for your prosperity with Dr. Tom John McPhee. Have a great week.